Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below to see all of those discounted games. Hello my friends, I can't believe it's already convention season. Gen Con is here. It's actually happening this week when this video goes live. Now I've already done a list of my top 10 most anticipated games. Those are ones that I have not even played or even demoed or anything like that. That video came out last week. If you want to see that, you can click the link in the below there or up there in the corner. But today we're going to be talking about games that I've already had the pleasure of being able to play at some point. And so I already know that these are sort of cool ones to check out while there. So here's my top 10 games of Gen Con that I've already played.
Number 10.
All right, number 10 is Wrath of Fire Mountain. Now this is sort of a, I'd say family game, but also a kids game. And I'm trying to do a cross section of different types of games. And the reason why this one caught my eye originally was because it's designed by two heavy hitter designers, Eric Lang and Phil Walker Harding. And these two came together and designed this game. I had a chance to play it with Phil Walker Harding at the Gathering of Friends last year. And wow, this is coming out by Buffalo Games or Game Right. They're going to be at the same booth there. Now this has Yahtzee style dice rolling where you're rolling dice, saving some, rolling again, getting up to 3 rolls. And then once you're there, you're going to be doing different things. You're going to be putting your cave people out on these tiles. You're going to be moving them around. You're going to be putting them on volcanoes. You're going to be doing all sorts of different things. But you're also going to be, if you get enough on the volcano, you're going to be moving and sliding rows of tiles, changing the landscape. And then you're going to be trying to have area control of certain areas. You're also going to be trying to get different powerful sort of special ability like animal cards that you're going to be able to use. Those are always really fun. And so yeah, you've got a lot of little things going in here. A decent amount going on for a kid's game, but for a family game, it's just one of those sort of light things. If you like dice rolling and area control with a sliding puzzle with just enough going on that gamer's like, okay, I can see what's going on. But for kids and families, it'll give them a decent amount to think about. It was cool. It was Wrath of the Fire Mountain, and again, these two designers to come out with a kids game, you got to keep your eye on it.
Number 9.
Now this next one is actually a game that came out a while back, but has been out of print for quite some time. It's called Ponzi Scheme. This one's being brought to us by Bright Eye Games. Now originally I think it was from Tasty Mistral Games. This is a very interesting sort of hidden information economic game where you're essentially investing and making sort of intrigue, silent, quiet, and secret deals with other players with, hey, I want to offer you this. And the interesting thing is, like, when you offer them that, if they take it, great, you get money, you give them other things or vice versa. But if they don't, then you have to buy that for that amount. So you're basically like, what am I willing to pay for it, but what I think that person's willing to pay for it. And you're working up, building up industries and such, but you're also trying to gain money. But then as things come on, you have to borrow more and more money. But then you also have to pay things off. And if you're not able to do that at some point, you go bankrupt and whoever has the most money wins. It's a very different and interesting game that you could play pretty terribly and the game will be over quick, or it could take 60 minutes or so. But it's a really interesting game with a lot of intrigue, and I'm glad it's coming back in print because this has always been sort of a favorite of mine. That's Ponzi Scheme.
Number 8.
This next one is also one that had been out for a while, but it's actually never been in distribution in North America. So that's why it's debuting at Gen Con here. This is a game called Belrati. This is a cooperative game. Now when this game originally came out, it was in a tiny little box over in Europe, small publisher, and it was one of the 5 recommended Spiel des Jahres way back then, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I bought the German version and I loved it. And then last year, Cosmos came out with a brand new version with all new art. It looks a lot better, and I bought that version too because I liked it so much, but I like the new art. But now Thames and Cosmos is bringing it out to North America. This is a great cooperative game where you've got these pieces of art and there's some categories and people are trying to play pictures or get cards of pictures of art that have to do with certain types of things. But the trick is that Belrati is going to mess things up and randomly throw paintings in there to try to sell them get them into the museum. And he's going to mess with things because people are going to think maybe that's yours, right? And so you're trying to pick only the ones that were actually true pieces and not the fake ones from Belrati. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes you're guessing, sometimes you're giving the clues with the cards. It's a lot of fun. It's a great co-op game, and I'm glad that it's finally coming out, and that's Belrati.
Number 7.
This next one is from a publisher who's been absolutely on a roll the last few years, Pandasaurus Games. This is a game called Umbrella, and this is sort of a very abstract game. And in this game, essentially it's almost like one of those old slide puzzles that you used to like slide something in and move something down, where essentially you're sliding umbrellas across your city streets, and you're trying to build them up in patterns that are specific for you. And once you finish that pattern, you'll have some ideas of how to get points for that, and then you'll be passing that pattern to the next player. So you're constantly trying to be as most efficient as possible, possibly working on multiple patterns with a single move, being really efficient. But there's also different ways of scoring, and there's different ways in different games that you can use for scoring, which makes it interesting. And you're also trying to get certain colors, but after a certain while, that certain colors are no longer useful to you. And so it's interesting. You've got to build up sort of this engine of this one color, then like pivot to another one because you only do the same color so many times. If you like these sort of thinky, quiet, stare down on my board, but I still got to pay attention to what other people are doing type of thing, this is a pretty thinky little abstract game that's really good. Umbrella.
Number 6.
This next one is from the Op. It is called Gnome Hollow. Now, I actually did a rule school of this. If you want to see exactly how to play the game without reading the rule book, you can check that out on my channel. But let me give you a quick 1-minute overview of how this one works. In Gnome Hollow, you'll be a gnome and their partner growing a communal garden full of mushrooms using paths from garden tiles. You'll be completing rings and claiming them with one of your gnomes, gaining you mushrooms. Those mushrooms can be sold in the pinwheel market, and depending on the rarity and quantity, you'll get a certain amount of treasure. Like these 4 pink mushrooms for this crystal worth 5 treasure points. But you have to anticipate your opponent's motives, because once more than 2 mushrooms of a certain type have been sold, they cannot be sold again. As you complete rings that you've claimed with one of your gnomes, not only will you be gaining more endgame points with each one completed, but you'll also be activating bonuses for the larger rings, one of which gains you wildflower tokens. And the more unique flowers you acquire, the more endgame points you'll get as well. So you're trying to balance completing and claiming rings, collecting and selling mushrooms to gain treasure, and collecting unique wildflowers to win and get the mayoral red cap token to show for it. Yeah, this one is it's got a lot of good things going on. It's got somewhat simple, elegant turns where you're placing tiles, but there's a decent amount to think about. There's you're going for rings. You're trying to build certain sizes of rings. You're trying to collect mushrooms for sets. You're trying to push your luck of when you can sell those mushrooms, or you do want to get more and sell more. But if somebody else sells that many mushrooms, you're not going to be able to do it for that color. You're trying to get different abilities from different signposts. You're using other people's signposts. You're also trying to get set collections for flowers. There's a decent amount going on here. It's somewhat simple, but at the same time there's a lot of depth there, and that's Gnome Hollow.
Number 5.
This next one's from Fireside Games called Zoomies. Now, Zoomies is a game about bringing dogs to dog parks, and I love dog themes. And this is, hey, they got greyhounds. I used to run a greyhound rescue. And so in this game, you're basically placing tiles that look like dominoes. Think of them as like King Domino style tiles. But instead of building your own thing, you're building a communal sort of dog park. And so players are building on other people, and you're going to be scoring by placing tokens on these. Sometimes you'll be the lead dog of that pack, and you'll get a point for every dog of that type in that contiguous area. Sometimes you're getting points for how many bones are in that contiguous area. Sometimes you're making friends with other dogs, and you'll get points for every time that breed of dog points to another one in that group, or the same other breed in that group, like the Chihuahuas, for example. Sometimes you'll get zoomies, which is allowing you to take another turn, but also trying to do set collection and such. So it's an interesting game where you're placing tiles out into a communal board. You're trying to score certain things, but you're also trying to cut other people off from allowing them to score, but keeping your opportunities there. It's all about finding the right opportunity on your turn. It's a light little, tile laying game, but there's a decent amount of thought there, some good interaction with other players, and I like this one a lot. That's Zoomies.
Number 4.
This next one is a cooperative game about building a city. It's from Blue Orange Games called Link City. In this one, you're building cities out there. There's all these different blocks, buildings that you're building. And it's a cooperative game where you're all working together, and someone's going to put some cones out. And this is going to tell you where these buildings are going to go. Then someone's going to get 3 random buildings behind a shield, and they're going to be trying to figure out which building, where should I put each of these buildings? Like, which one does it make sense? Does it make sense to put the barber shop next to a baseball field? Well, maybe not, but how about the barber shop next to an apartment? Well, that would be kind of cool. Or do I want to put the funeral home next to a cemetery? Well, yeah, but do I want to put the funeral home next to the celebrity house? Probably not. And so it's funny because you have these three buildings and you're not really sure, you don't even know what the buildings are before someone tells you where they have to go, and then you're trying to figure out which one goes where. Everyone's talking about it, and it's just fun. It's a simple, light, very light, party-ish style game, but it's really fun to listen to the descriptions of why people think it should be somewhere else, and it just builds a really fun experience, more fun than you think it will. Link City is a great one. In fact, this is my pick for next year's Spiel des Jahres winner, or at least a nomination, Link City.
Number 3.
This next one is a third in a trilogy of games called deduction games. The first one was Search for Planet X. The second one was Search for Lost Species. And this one is called Search for UAPs, Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. We used to call them UFOs. This one actually is still done by Renegade Game Studios, but it's not done by the first two designers that did the first two games. It's actually done by Ted Alspach, who was a huge fan of the first two games. His team actually helped develop the app for the second version of that game. But he loved the game so much that he came up with sort of a third version of this game, and the original designers really liked it too, so here we go. I got a chance to play this last year with Ted Alspach, actually, the designer. Search for Planet X and Lost Species is a straight-up deduction game. It is crunchy, there's a lot to think about. There's an app that helps run it, which is great because you can never get the wrong answer from someone, so if you mess up, it's on you. And they've been great games. They've both been different so far. This one adds a lot of different things, actually. It feels familiar, but it's definitely the most heaviest and most crunchy, and there's definitely the most going on in this one. So if you like the other two, but you wanted even more difficulty, this is going to be that one for you. You can play this one up to 5 players, or the other ones are 4 players. Several of the objects will not have a known quantity at the beginning of the game. You've got to figure out how many there are. There might be this many, there might be this many, you're not really sure. There's quadrant modifiers. So these are sort of global effects that change each game that affect all the players in that area, so that keeps things different every game. Sometimes they can be beneficial, or sometimes they cause more challenges. Now there's 2 sort of boards there. There's a smaller central board, which is the inner orbit, and then there's the outer one, that's the outer orbit. And the inner orbit will rotate throughout the game, creating different object adjacencies as games go on. So as the game goes on. So yeah, if you liked Planet X and Lost Species, the search for both of those, and you wanted another thing that brings even more depth, more complexity, you'll want to check this one out.
Number 2.
The next one is a word game. I don't really want to call it a party game. If you think Codenames is a party game, this is a party game. This is called Landmarks. This is going to be there by Floodgate Games. This game, I just reviewed it recently, is amazing. This is a very special game. For me, I think it might be a codename killer for some. It's a game. It's a game that can be played cooperatively, or it can be played in teams. Both are great. I like the team game even better. But you're trying to move people around a map by giving words. There's one-word clues that you're giving, and you're putting these on tiles. And where you place them matters, because you might place it adjacent to just one word. And so you want that to be a word that has to do with that word, but not any of the other ones that are near it. Or maybe you put it next to 2 words and you want it to have to do with both of those. And maybe surrounded by a bunch of words. You want that word to do with everything. What you're trying to do is get your team, or everybody if it's co-op, to get treasures and exit. But you don't want them to step on curses, traps. You're trying to get water to give yourself more clues. It's amazing. Then the team game is even better because just like in Codenames, the other team might actually lead that team to your answer, helping you out, like in Codenames. But there's also shared ones, whoever gets there first. And there's another layer of depth where you can actually lead the other team. You can actually set up the other team better than your own, not by accident, but by bad play. So there's more layers of depth here, I think, in the team game than Codenames, but it has some similarities, but it's also very different because it has an abstract spatial aspect to it. Man, if you liked Codenames, you have to get Landmarks. You'll love it.
Number 1.
Before we get to the moment you've been waiting for, I want to let you know of an upcoming opportunity to win money while gaming. The World Series of Board Gaming is in Las Vegas from September 22nd to 26th, and they're giving away over $200,000 of cash and prizes, including Super Bowl-style rings, to the winners. Now, there are 16 different games available to play, like Ticket to Ride, Heat Pedal to the Metal, Earth, brass Birmingham, and more. Now you can click the link below to learn more details of how it works and to receive $25 off your entry using the promo code GameBoyGeek. This next one is from Hobby World. They're a Russian publisher, and they're bringing this game to Gencon, and I'm really excited about it because this is called Intent to Kill. This is a deduction game. This is a two-player asymmetric game where one player plays the killer and one player plays the investigator. The killer is moving suspects around themselves too, the killer, the murderer, and they're trying to hide their motive, which by the way is going to be like one of 6 or 8 different things depending on the difficulty, and those are going to change each game. There's multiple scenarios you can play, even though the base game alone without the scenarios is great too. The murderer is trying to move around and murder people, and they have to fit their own secret motive. And the investigator is trying to figure out their motive by what are the types of people they're killing and how do they relate to the other ones, but they're also trying to figure out who the murderer is. So at the end, they've got to say who the murderer is and what their motive was to win, and the murderer's trying to thwart that. There's an advanced mode with cards that you can get that give you special abilities. There's different scenarios that you can play, but again, even just the base game is excellent. Don't even jump into the crazy stuff because the base game is fantastic. It is a cat and mouse, it has a hidden movement feel, even though you're not sort of hidden, it's not totally hidden movement. Plus the murderer has some aspects of where they can lie. At certain parts, there's certain social groups that will help them lie, and they know secretly which ones they are. It is fantastic. If you like deduction, if you like hidden movement, if you like asymmetric, if you like two-player games, if you like games that have layers of depth with onions of layers and layers of depth, and you like bluffing and double bluffing, and they think I did this because I did this, but I'm really doing this, and I really want to keep them from knowing this. If you like those head games, two-player games that plays in, I'd say 45-ish minutes, man, this is fantastic, and it's why it's my number one, Intent to Kill from Hobby World. All right, well, I hope I helped you put some games on your radar that you didn't even know about, or maybe you had heard about, but now you know a little bit more about them. Again, these are ones that are all going to be for sale at Gen Con. And again, if you missed my other video about my most anticipated, you can check that on my channel too. It's been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships with board games, and helping you on the next one you love. Game Toppers upgrades every game you play, and they just launched their 4.5 Kickstarter, which will introduce the new Galactic, Mycroft, and Watson Game Toppers with interchangeable rail inlays, as well as new game mats, miniature gaming terrain packs, leg kit options, dining covers, accessories, and amazing package deals. Search for Game Toppers on Kickstarter or go to GameToppersLLC.com.